Good morning, everybody. We are about to start the sketching process. All right, timers are set for 30 minutes. Got the pencil, got the paper, and let's begin. When you sketch, it's important to have an idea in mind of what are you trying to draw. And just let your imagination kind of go with it. I don't get very bogged down in what specifically I want to draw in a given session, but maybe it's some kind of character, right, that I want to define, somebody new that I've never created before. And when we begin sketching characters, it's important also to just give the impression of what that character is doing with very general large lines. You can see almost a skeleton type of figure. Maybe we have some type of scene here that we're drawing. That's a guy, maybe there's a woman here. And I'm just doing these very general, like I said, skeleton bodies, which are going to define the position and the movement of these characters. And I'm not giving a whole lot of consideration to the details just yet. Start very generally, and we'll get more specific over time. And I don't know what these two characters are doing per se. They're just roughly in these positions, and I might change the dynamics a little bit as we sketch. Maybe I have some type of horizon or background here. And there's roughly the scene that we have. You get these two characters, they're standing up, and there's some tricks that you can use to get the proportions right for the body, like the head might be 7.5 or 6 heads down, the torso, and then the hips have a certain number of heads if you measure them. But, because we're sketching here, we're not doing something super academic, just go along with whatever comes to mind in the moment. And just visually try to imagine what this is going to look like. Maybe we'll give her some long hair. Maybe he's got some cool kind of back. He's got some cool hair too. I'm not getting super detailed again. I'm just roughly giving the impression. We don't necessarily need to get into a whole bunch of detail. This is just about having fun, letting your imagination go, and just rendering during this drawing session, rendering what this is going to look like. Like maybe I'm giving this guy some muscles. Maybe he's a little bit more muscular than a normal person would be. And 30 minutes a day, you can see how I set the timer for 30 minutes, is really an ideal amount of time to hone your craft, to get really good at what you're doing. If you continue to do 30 minutes a day, you'll see really within no time your abilities skyrocketing. And it's pretty amazing how just a little bit of practice every day can go such a long way into improving your skills. Notice how on the woman figure, you can see how much smaller the proportions as far as the arms are. Again, frame is smaller. We don't want to make it's not necessarily true per se, but we just want to make sure that I'm going to give her a little bit of a, what do you call it? A larger chest. Remember the rib cage for a woman? Rib cage for a woman is larger than a male's. So it comes in, goes down, and then comes on out with a slightly larger hip. And I'm just doing a basic skeleton that's then going to evolve into clothing and all that other stuff. But once you get the underlying skeleton in place, the rest of it flows pretty naturally to just fill in the details. Very long woman here. And the male doesn't have as much of a V shape necessarily as wide hips. One of the beauties of sketching from the imagination is every time you practice it, you get better and better at the process of just creating from the imagination. It's really helpful too to draw from nature. And I'll explain that here in a little bit of why it's so helpful to draw from nature. The main reason, of course, is drawing from nature gives you the understanding of what those proportions ought to look like. And the more often that you do it, the better from your imagination you'll be able to draw. And I mean, I'm by no means reached master level, but the more, again, practice, draw every single day, and if you follow this channel, you'll see that every single day we do 30 minutes of drawing, and that practice is going to make perfect, or rather make progress, as some of my colleagues like to say. Now we're going to give her somewhat of a t-shirt or maybe a strapless shirt. Maybe she's wearing a tank top. Give her maybe a belt over here. We're not getting into a lot of shading yet. We're just getting the outline of the characters. Really, when you start sketching, work your way into progressively more and more detail. But at the very beginning, just get in the shapes and think about the big picture. Because the proportions, you have the first shot to get your composition, your proportions right, is at the start. It's at the very beginning of the drawing. If you start getting too bogged down in details, you can't really make those wholesale changes later on. So I like to get in the big features first, and then get into detail. And I do some rough idea of shading early on, but I don't get into super crazy detail of shading. A pretty tall character here, which is fine. I mean, that's what we're going for, right? Maybe this character has some sandals on, who knows? Okay. Got her some jeans on. Some high shorts, maybe they're tattered at the bottom. So I'm giving it a little bit of kind of a look like it's ripped or torn. And just give her a little bit of a mouth. Just filling in some details. Give her a little bit of a necklace here. Adding some accents to the shirt. Just going back through and just little finer details as we improve the look and feel of the drawing. And I'm putting in some rough shadows at this stage. And you don't want to get too much in detail in one area of the drawing. Keep on working everywhere at once, because if you neglect other parts of the drawing, then it looks like almost you have two drawings in one rather than one complete uniform drawing. So it's very good, it's very useful to try to maintain your drawing at all places at all time. I'm trying not to cover up too much of that drawing with my hand so you guys can see the progress. But you can see roughly how I'm putting this together, and notice how I'm just putting the impression of a face, and we can modify that later on, but at least we're getting a solid impression of our character as we're building him, and just have fun with it. Let your imagination soar. Make him as crazy looking as you want. It doesn't have to be normal looking. You can add some serious muscles, put some veins. Go in a wild direction. Whatever you think works. Maybe he's carrying some type of futuristic weapon, right? Who knows? And when you're doing hands, one of the things I like to do is imagine myself standing there and what would my hands look like in that position. And then I try to just flip it in my mind's eye. It's not going to be perfect, but we're sketching. And perfection is not the name of the game. It's just about getting your ideas down, getting that practice of controlling the pencil and creating what's in your mind's eye on paper. And it's amazing what you can do in just a short 30-minute session in terms of sketching. I mean, if you don't have 30 minutes to spare, just try to time it so you have 15 minutes or at least 10 minutes to do a quick sketch in the morning. Have a sketchbook by your bed before you get out of bed. Just get up and sketch something. That's all you need to do. Alright, let's give him a t-shirt. Maybe he's got some type of military uniform or some type of spandex. This guy's in pretty good shape here. Now for the pectorals, I'm just going to give the bottom of the pecs. He's got some abs. I'm not going to really define the abs, but you'll get an impression of them through the shirt maybe. And then maybe the spandex comes down, and he still has spandex on the bottom. Maybe he's got some cool boots on, some type of superhero. Again, just let your mind go in any direction that you feel like in the moment. And I didn't really plan this. I'm just going with what looks cool to me in the moment. At this stage, we can add some shadow. And one of the things to think about when you're shading your drawing is think about the light source. Where's light hitting? And that, based on where the light's hitting, is how you'll achieve depth to your image. So think about the 3D form. Think about where the light is shining from. Envision your object like a 3D mesh. It has form to it. There's a circular form or a cylindrical form. If I have a cylinder, and I'll just do a quick illustration. If I have a cylinder, right? So a torso might be like a cylinder. Light's cast from the sky or some light source, and as the light hits the object, one side's going to be bright, and then shadow is going to take up the rest of the object. So you might have something like this. And now you have a little bit of an illusion of a 3D object. Your mind is going to fill in the details and make this look more and more 3D-like as it looks at it as a mental shortcut, because it says, oh, I know, there's shadow here, there's light here, it's therefore a 3D object. And if the edges are rounded properly, you get the illusion of 3D, 3 dimensions. One of the things you can really work on is starting all of your characters like we did at the beginning as just these blocks of objects, of geometric objects, like a cylinder or a sphere for the head, or 2 spheres for the head, and then you might have a cubic style of muscles. So the cube is going to have certain shadows and light features on it. Here I'm just pretending like everything's basically a cylinder, and I'm doing the same principle like this, where it gets darker on one side and shades to light to achieve a 3D effect on my character. And the more time you have, the more you can render out your object, and you can give it some finer details, make it look more polished, make it change to however you like. Let's give him that gun that I was talking about. Maybe not a gun. I don't want to get violent with this. Maybe he's a hockey player. I mean, that's totally random, but it's funny. We'll give him a hockey stick. And his hockey stick's going to go in front of his lady friend here. Now, I'm not a professional hockey player. I have played with a hockey stick before in my early years. I can give the rough idea of it, but technically, again, this is your own sketch. This is your own this is your own imagination. So run wild with it a little bit. Enjoy the process, enjoy the sketching session, and really just go with the details that come to your mind. Her hand might be a little bit long here, but we'll just make a fist there. One question you might ask is, how do I know the right proportions? Well, like we talked about earlier, you can use some rules of thumb, or you can just exaggerate the positions a little bit. Exaggerate it until you're happy with what you have, or even if you're not happy with what you have, at least you're getting the practice. At least you're getting that strengthening of the hand, of the grip, the muscles in your hand, the control of the pencil. These are all important parts of drawing. You'll notice I'm not really paying attention to the smudging that I'm doing here. I'm just letting my hand roll with it. In our sketchbooks, we can do that. There's no harm in smudging the paper in the sketchbook. If you're going to do a professional drawing, you might want to take more care on where you're starting on your drawing and how you're avoiding smudging it. We'll give him some cool glasses, maybe. We didn't give him any trapezoid muscles. I think they're called traps. His deltoids are here, his biceps and triceps. It is useful to have some concept of basic anatomy, whether you've drawn from some photographs or drawn yourself. Studying the contours and the definition of different muscle groups, it helps to get an idea of some of these proportions. I mean, it's odd, it's bizarre, but it's working. I'm having fun, and I hope that you guys are having fun as well with your sketchbooks and your crazy ideas. Put some mountain ranges in the background, maybe. I don't know if they're in Egypt or some. Maybe put some stars. I don't know. And a background, you don't want to get too heavy with your pencil when you're doing the backgrounds to your sketches. You want to create some illusion of atmosphere. So just be light with your pencil and create that illusion of depth. Maybe there's some weird road that's coming in from a river or something, or stream coming in from the mountain. Just have fun. Let your imagination go in whatever direction it takes you. Let the drawing flow and your imagination just run wild. And then we're just going to render. Render out your shadows, render out the details of your picture. You can add some fun details. This guy's looking kind of like he needs a hug or something. Maybe she's got some type of flower in her hair. I don't know where she got the flower from, but she's got one. Cool. Alright. Some other details. We want to create some more foreground. We can put a couple of objects up here. We can also maybe just put a couple of rocks. Put a big boulder. Rocks don't really have much excitement to them. Just some jagged edges. A couple little pebbles here and there. We're gonna add some shadow, so you give the rock a little bit of a 3D concept to it. Maybe a deeper shadow on the front end, and again, remember our light source. Try to be consistent too on the light source throughout the image. Don't give each object its own light source unless truly there's some type of light casting on each object. If you have an idea of where the light's coming from, always shade consistently every object in your sketch from where that light's coming from. That's going to create unison. It's going to create a nice continuity to your drawing. I'm just adding some shadow here. Shading that side of the rock. Maybe making it a little darker here. Also, one thing a lot of people forget to do, especially when they're sketching or drawing, is add a shadow underneath the figure as well. What this does is it puts them a little bit onto a world. So instead of floating out in space, now they're all of a sudden grounded when you add a little bit of a shadow underneath them. It puts them in the world rather than floating in the sky. And that's always, unless you're drawing, maybe they're flying somewhere, that's going to be a difference for sure. But adding that shadow is a really nice touch that you can all do. And maybe it's dawn right now. And I don't want to get too much into this shading everything in the background. You just want to shade a couple of spots to give it the idea of atmosphere. Otherwise, all we're doing is just shading, which is nice, and maybe that's what you're going for. But unless that's really your idea of a sketching session, I would avoid getting too much into the atmospheric shading and constantly shading and rendering everything. Focus on the characters themselves in your sketchbook. Give them the shading and the detail. That's going to be the focus of that drawing. And what I'm doing here, I'm just going back over my lines and I'm defining them better. It adds some nice accents, some nice dynamics to the drawing if you do that. So it's a good thing to get into the habit of doing. And the better equipped you are, I have my little eraser here. The better equipped you are with what you want to draw in a certain session, the better the drawing's going to come out. But ultimately, use your imagination as much as possible. Don't worry about perfection. Don't worry about, hey, does this look good? No one's gonna really see this unless of course you show it to people or they open up your sketchbooks and look at your work. Really draw for yourself and create the vision and the reality that you deem fit for yourself. Maybe there's some type of animal. Maybe I have an animal here. I'm gonna think of how I'm gonna do this. Put a little cat. I always used to love to draw cats when I was a kid. So we had 2 cats growing up. So I'm just giving the impression of the ears. I know there's a head. I know the head's kind of flat. And then I know that it comes out this way. And it's going to be the cat. Just a fun kind of cartoonish. Put some eyes on it. Give it some depth. It's sitting down. We don't want him to be leaning too much. Give him a tail. There's our fun little cat. Give him some shadow. We're just sketching. We're just having fun sketching. Nothing too complex or tricky here. Just some nice fun with the imagination. Some ears, head, gave him a bunch of whiskers. There's our little cat person. Now we'll put some details, some little rocks around here. You can put some clouds if you want up in the heavens. And I'm going very light with the pencil for the background again. You don't want to push too hard. You want to create that illusion of depth. Give her some, add some texture to her clothing if we want. And the contour lines. Remember, the lines are going to contour to her body, to the 3D position of her torso, and give her shorts some definition. Maybe we'll give it a little bit of darkness. Right now it's all one tone. So if we add some darkness to it, we can actually change the tone so it looks like a different material. And we're almost out of time for a quick sketch session. But we had fun today. And that's what this is all about. It's about having fun, about creating from the imagination. It's about practicing drawing with your hand, coming up with these fun scenes. And nobody has to really worry about what you're drawing but you. It's for yourself. So try to avoid being critical and thinking too much about it. All right, guys, and that concludes the session. I'm gonna go ahead and sign the drawing. If you all enjoyed this session, make sure you like and subscribe to my videos. We draw every single day, 30 minutes, and we just sketch from the imagination. If you make this a routine, when you get home, when you wake up in the morning, you'll get better and better every single day, and that's the name of the game. It's express your creativity, find that peace that comes from drawing constantly, and just improve your skill set. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.